Good afternoon and welcome on a LiveSafari drive. My name's Brent. I've got VM on camera. We have James and Jandre on the other vehicle, and we have Eugene and Tara in final control. Welcome everyone. For those of you who are on the Sunrise Safari this morning, I was planning to come have a look at Hippo Beach here at Sydney's Dam, and unfortunately we ran out of time, so I thought what a good way to start this sunset safari. You can see all the hippos there in the distance, lying on the beach, getting a bit of warmth. It is an incredibly windy sunset safari tonight. It's probably it's 29 degrees Celsius, 84 Fahrenheit, so hot and windy. It's going to make the game viewing a little bit challenging. And if we look up to the horizon at the moment, it's almost this haze, and you can see there's a lot of dust that's been brought up by the wind. And here are some guinea fowl chattering. I just want to see what they're chattering about. Oh, you must be able to hear that wind on the mics. You're looking a little bit uncomfortable about something, so I'm just trying to figure out what it is. Could be a slender mongoose. It could be a bird of prey. Or it could be a leopard. I did see a fish eagle just a few minutes before we went live that went off in that general direction. I can't see where it's sitting now. That could possibly be. And there's some more that are just coming to join them out from the thickets here. So maybe they're just checking for each other, and there's about to be a guinea fowl reunion. But here we go. Such strange looking birds. They can get into huge flocks during the dry season, so they split off into little pairs during the wet season to lay eggs, and then they form these big flocks in the dry season. And they're in South Africa on the Highveld, especially where there are a lot of maize farmers. During the dry season you can get flocks of over 1,000. It looks like one of the hippos is standing up. There at the back, and you can just make out all the oxpeckers that are on top of the hippos as well. That'll be the hippos, especially in the strong wind, their early warning system in case a predator happened to come by would send them all charging into the water. I want to see how many hippos I can see now. I'll just count with my binoculars. And we're always going to miss a few that are hiding behind the large bulk of another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16 that I can see for definite. And then off to the right, there's number 17 lying by itself. And it doesn't look like it's in the best condition, that hippo. See, could be a young male that's trying to avoid conflict with a dominant male, or it could be one who's just not feeling so well. There are still quite a few in the water as well, but it's very difficult to see them with the glare from the sun. So I would say there's comfortably at least 20 to 30 hippos in this dam at the moment. So that hippo that I'm looking at that doesn't look like is in a very good condition. The fact I'm saying that, I've got the benefit of binoculars which do help, but there seems to be some open wounds on the one side. That's what leads me to think it's possibly a male. And the fact that it's not lying close in that sort of bundle with the other hippos is quite a good indicator that it isn't in the best nick, or it is a young male that's being pushed out. And obviously as we get further and further into the dry season, especially on these hot, windy, dry days like today, he might take that, if it is a young male, he might take the chance to try sneak into the water, because he might have been caught too far away from other water that doesn't have any hippos, for like Buffalo's Hook Dam. There we go. He's moving a little bit. Who knows? Maybe he's just antisocial. But we're gonna leave the hippo beach and head on else to see what else we can find. General plan for the day is we haven't found any leopard tracks for a while, so I'm going to try my best to see if we can find some leopard tracks, and with finding some tracks, hopefully we'll be able to find what's at the end of the tracks, but often that's much easier said than done, so we will try. For those of you who are new, we are on a live safari. You are seeing what I'm seeing at the exact same time. We also are interactive, so you are able to ask us questions about what we're seeing in the bush, and you can do that by emailing us, and that's questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. But I personally really like the dry season. It does get a little bit difficult to watch sometimes, because a lot of the animals do lose condition, but you are spoiled to some of the best predator viewing at this time of the year. Not that the predators aren't around at the other time of the year, it's just with the lack of grass, the animals focused on the water points, and the lack of trees, it gives us a much better chance to see the predators and find them. And even when we're seeing them, with the lack of cover, we're able to sort of see the more total picture rather than focusing in on a leopard hiding in the long grass. But let's get going and see what we can find. Hi, George Ann from Illinois. George Ann's done some research since the sunrise. Sorry, thanks very much for that, George Ann. We really appreciate all that you guys give us out there. George Ann said she's found out somewhere that apparently for every hippo for every that is killed by a hippo, people kill 60 hippos in return. George, I wouldn't be confident to say I know. She's asked me what I think. Is this true? I'm not 100% sure on those.
Welcome everybody to Jigga. Nice to have you with us. I'm just going to stop here while I greet you. We are here, as I'm sure Brent told you, in the 2.2 million hectare Kruger National Park, part of 3.5 million hectares of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Behind me, for the first time in the hot seat, is Jandre, ex-Cape Town, various other places. He, unlike the other cameramen, doesn't dress in the fashion of an Old West bandit, and I can actually see his face, which is quite pleasant. Our plan this afternoon is to head up. We're now sitting on our eastern boundary. I am kind of repeating myself from this morning, because I'm very much hoping that Kunyuma pride is going to have made its way across the boundary from the north. I'm not going to lurk around too much in this area. I've just checked the south, where Brent's lioness from this morning was sort of thinking about heading through here, but nothing so far. So we're going to head up towards Buffalo's Hook Waterhole, see if we can't find a Bob the Bachelor hippo, and perhaps some lions with him. It's been quite a warm day, so it's quite possible that the lions would have come to drink, and then they would have lain down in the shade somewhere near there. Quite a windy afternoon, which always gives a slightly different feel. There's slightly tension in the air that it gives. Nice smells, but quite hazy skies. and just a slightly different feel from the sort of normal midday crystal clearness of the low-felt winter. Right, so here we go. Any problems with the picture? You can blame Jean-Andre. It is his first time, so please go easy on him. He looks pretty much in control though. He's operating that camera like it's an extension of his body. Hello, Pamela in upstate New York. Nice question, thank you for it. You want to know, will any of the trees change color, first of all, and B, will we lose any more leaves as our winter progresses? The answer is absolutely yes. Just remember that our autumn at the lower latitudes that we find ourselves, so we're not too far from the equator, compared with where you are in upstate New York. Your latitude is much higher than where we are, and what that means is that you have 3 much more clearly defined seasons. And here we tend to have basically 3 seasons, at least 2 seasons, summer and winter, and then there's a little bit of spring and a little bit of autumn in the middle. So around us now you can see that there are quite a few. There's a little steenbok there, Jean-Andre, which you may or may not be able to get. Angle is awkward, but I'm going to stop here because I don't want him to run away. There we go, well done. So while we look at that steenbok, Pamela, so all of the marulas have lost their leaves at the moment. The bits of yellow that you can see as we're driving around are combretum trees, and they're all going to lose their leaves. The silver cluster leaves are still retaining some of their leaves, and they're going to lose them. And by sort of the early August, most of the leaves that are going to fall off will have fallen off. And there will be a slightly, there he goes, there'll be a slightly more grey hue to the sort of golden brown that we have at the moment. And that's mainly because it's been a pretty dry year. And because of that dryness, not a lot of water in the water table, and so yeah, there are going to be big changes up going into August. And we always think here, you know, September is officially the start of our spring here. We always sort of have the impression that things are going to sprout and go green in September, and they don't. The knobthorns are the first to flower. They flower even before they leaf, but then the rest tends to stay fairly sort of brown and grey until October, November, when we get our first rains. And the grass will definitely not flush green until we had quite a lot of rain. Thanks, Pamela. Get that. Jean-Andre, did you spot that little bird? He's still there. Jean-Andre's just spotted a small raptor. You got him there? Yeah, you have. I think he's a little sparrowhawk. Now, you're not going to get a great picture of him there, but I will show you a picture just now in the field guide. That is a little sparrowhawk. That's actually a really nice shot of them. They don't normally get shots of them like that at all. And he likes to eat all sorts of little birds like waxbills and possibly the odd white-browed scrub robin. Although if I ever saw him taking one of those, I'd have to chase him off and give him a telling off. And often if you hear a drongo alarm calling, he'll be shouting at something like that. The drongos are totally intolerant of a bird like that. Little sparrowhawk. Almost impossible to see in that unless you see them fly. And Jean-Andre and I saw him fly. So I'll just show you a quick picture of him here. That's him there, number 1. The little sparrowhawk. It's quite a sweet little bird, this chap here. And yeah, not often that we see them, and they're tiny. I mean, 23 centimeters, so about the length of this book, just shorter than this book. Very nice. Thanks, Jandre. You're doing all right so far. We might keep you. Craig, lovely question. Thank you, from Texas. Craig has asked about fire in this area, and do we get it? Do we try and prevent it? And is there any fire damage? If we see some fire damage, I will show you, but I know that Juma didn't burn last year. There is some on Arathusa. We've been through quite a lot of fire in that area. Now, fire is a hotly contested thing. That was a completely unintended joke. And it's also profoundly misunderstood. A lot of people think that you can just put a fire through an area like this, in fact the area exactly around where you can see us, and it will clear off the thick bush, burn away the bush encroachment, and you'll have the Serengeti in a year or two. Nothing could be further from the truth. The big thing with fire is that it burns, its fuel load is almost exclusively in this area derived from the grass. So if you have a low rainfall year like the one we've just had, the fuel load of grass in the area is generally quite low, and it is quite low now. So on a windy day like this in sort of mid-September, yeah, you'd get a fire. It wouldn't be particularly terrifying in this particular area. It might kill off some of the top growth on the trees, but just about every single tree out here has evolved to deal with fire, and they'll just sprout up again from the bottom in a process called coppicing. And in fact, if I find it, I'll try and find you a tree that's been burned and that has then coppiced from the base. And that's in response to fire, in response to elephants, in response to all sorts of things. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of European and North American trees that wouldn't respond in that way because they don't have they have different kinds of pressures. So yes, we do worry a little bit about fire, especially after a high rainfall year, and we'll make sure that there are fire breaks around the lodges. You've got to be very careful of testing your fire equipment obviously all the time, and making sure that everybody knows what to do with the drills. But normally in the bush, it's not a huge issue. We will try and fight fire sometimes, and sometimes we put controlled burns in order to clear away moribund and dry grass, especially after a high rainfall year. Lovely question, but there are libraries full of information written about different fire strategies and when you should burn and how you should burn and who should burn and who shouldn't, etc. And it's all rather confusing. So that in a fairly large walnut shell is the fire thing. Any more questions on that, Craig? Please feel free to fire them away. So still, alas, no lion tracks coming across here. I just have a feeling in me bones. Thank you all for your welcomes for Jandre, who's now grinning very happily at the back of the vehicle. I'm going to try and spell his name, and he'll nod to me if I'm correct or not. It's Jandre. No, he's not. What is it?
Jandre.
Jandre. Now I'm going to guess how he got it. Is it from your grandfather's? No. How did you get it?
I have absolutely no idea.
He's got no idea how he got his name. Jandre. Jandre has worked in the bush for about 8 years. He's been filming bits of natural history, done a lot of presenter-based stuff, and some blue chip wildlife stuff. And we're quite pleased to have him, I must say, especially after that sparrowhawk. Hello, Gilly in Wisconsin. You've asked an interesting question. You've said, is it true that rhino like to stomp out fire? For those of you who don't know, this comes, I think, from a film called, if I'm not mistaken, The Gods Must Be Crazy. It might be another film. And there might be the odd African folklore fable that states rhino will come and they see a fire at night, stomp it out. As far as I know, it is fable, but fable has to start somewhere. So whether or not it's ever happened, I'm not really sure. Just to remind, and if anybody's ever heard of an actual example, I'd be fascinated to know about it. And just to remind you, rhino do occur in this reserve. White rhino, not so much black rhino. In fact, probably once every 10 years a black rhino. But we tend to avoid showing them because we don't want to give the nefarious criminals who poach them any idea as to where they might be. There you can see the kind of golden color that the bush has gone. It will go slightly grayer as the season progresses. And then, yeah, look, an area like this is never a major fire hazard. Another interesting comment from Wisconsin, Teresa, thank you for it. You have reminded us that when you refer to evergreen trees in the northern, or in the New World, and also I suppose in Europe, you're referring to conifers, so pine trees and trees with needles on them rather than leaves. Out here, we refer to evergreen trees. We don't get naturally occurring conifers, or we get very few, and they tend to be very ancient examples. The yellowwood, if I'm not mistaken, is a conifer of some sort, but it doesn't have needles. It's also got leaves. Out here, we've got the plants are generally what we call angiosperms, so they're flowering plants and they'll have leaves. And evergreens do occur here for us, and they're just, to us, trees that are non-deciduous. So trees that will not drop their leaves during the winter. And there are quite a few around here, especially on the drainage lines. And I'll show you a couple as we go through the afternoon. Definitely a feeling of wind about the place. And sometimes I find on a windy day we don't see very much. And sometimes on a windy day we do. At the moment, it's one of the former. So if you just, sorry, Jean-Andre, can we just shine a sort of, yeah, that's just in front of the vehicle here so we can get a picture of the color of the trees there. Oh, sorry. Let's try and stop the car before we roll into the ditch. So that color that you can see there will change profoundly over the next 2 months. As we go into July, it'll get slightly less green. Those yellow leaves and the gold that you can see there will fall off. Remember, none of the trees here go bright red like they would in the northern hemisphere, like in upstate New York, for example. The tambutis do a bit, but not so much the combretums, which are the main trees here. And then come August, all of those sort of that silvery color that you can see there. Yeah, that's perfect. And that framing there, that silvery color you can see is the silver cluster leaf. Their leaves are all kind of going to start dropping off fairly soon. They're all dead and cringing. What word am I looking for? I've lost it. I'll get it back at some stage. So they'll all fall off the trees, and then so come September, October, this scene will be one where the greenness that you can see there, and just on the tips of some of those trees, those are the evergreens or semi-deciduous ones, and they'll always have elements of green on them. And come September or October, that's all the kind of green there's going to be. And the rest will be that sort of browny gold color, which I quite like. And sometimes people from the northern hemisphere find it a little bit harsh, but I really like it, especially with the anticipation of the new rains come November and October. Right, speaking of water, we're quite near Biffle's Hook waterhole. We're going to go and see how the old friend, the hippo, is doing. All of the acacias, of course, tend to be deciduous, so they'll all lose their leaves. And as I think I've said before, the strategy here of some of the trees is to be semi-deciduous, so they lose some of their leaves. They're never completely without leaves for any period, and that's because it's never cold enough for them to need to be dormant. We're going to go across to Brent. I know you've seen some hippos with him, so let's see what he's discovered, and I shall report on Bob a bit later, and if we find any lions at the waterhole, which I'm hoping for, we'll obviously see you there.
Welcome back, everyone. We've just been sitting here and listening carefully to see if we can pick up any sounds, any noises that might lead us on to something a little bit more interesting. But unfortunately, nothing yet. And the wind is making it quite difficult. So sorry about that, Georgianne. I was in the middle of answering your questions about hippos and people when the satellite gremlins crept in and snuck onto the back of Wendy. But we are back now. So the original question was, do people kill more hippos than hippos kill people? And she found information somewhere that said for every person that a hippo kills, people kill 60. So I started to explain in a lot of traditional and rural areas in Africa, hippo form a very much part of the local diet. So I'm pretty sure that hippos, people definitely kill more hippos than vice versa, because they are used as a traditional meat source. And hippos are not threatened at the moment, and in the major rivers and wetlands of Africa, they're still very, very healthy. And so there are quite a lot of hippos around, so I wouldn't worry about them too much, but being killed by the local tribesmen. Fortunately, there are quite a lot more humane ways these days of killing them, but traditionally, especially at this time of the year, if you had a sort of pool that was drying up in the river, they would build a thorn fence around it and leave one or two paths coming out, and the two methods of killing hippos that way one was a drop spear, which was a huge spear and heavy spear with a weight attached to it set on a mechanism, and as the hippo or elephant would walk underneath, this big heavy spear would drop into the back of their neck. And the other less nice way was to put all sorts of sharp stones and thorns on the one access in and out of the water, and then once they were weak enough that the tribesmen could then spear them on foot. But not nice ways, but fortunately that's changed quite a bit. And obviously the hunting is regulated, so there's a specific quota based on populations. But I hope that helps explain that, Georgianne. To let you know, we are now searching for any sign of shadow in Sindile. they haven't been seen for a while by us or our friends to the west. So I'm just hoping that we come across some tracks somewhere in this area. They have been showing quite a preference for this area over the last while. So we'll keep searching, and hopefully they've done some daytime walking. So you'll see these hot, windy days, even if we do come across maybe some of the plains game, zebra, wildebeest, impala, we'll notice there can be quite a lot jumpier with this heavy wind we experience at the moment. Shortly we're going to come out in some open grasslands. Not too sure there's going to be too much on them with this hot wind, but there might be some animals along the edge in the shade. Hi Stefan, welcome on the Sunset Safari, Stefan. Stefan's interested in how we maintain our roads. Well, a lot of our roads are very small, and we call them sort of two tracks. This is actually one of the larger ones, and I will show you now, but a lot of the maintenance is just done by themselves. But obviously this is in the dry season, it's much easier. In the rainy season, it becomes a little bit more difficult and tricky, and we'll even avoid certain areas because otherwise we'll get stuck. Guys, James has found something really amazing. We're going to cross across to him and we'll be back with you a little later.
Well, everybody, I have to tell you, I'm mighty impressed with this new fellow, Gendre. He spotted that through about a kilometre of impenetrable bush. We've got a beautiful leopard there. Now we move around to have just a quick look. We haven't got too close yet, just to make sure that he looks relaxed. I think that looks like Mvula to me, and we're just going to go and get a better look now. Drive down closer. Magnificent spot by our erstwhile new cameraman. I didn't see anything, I just saw the buffalo. Oh, it's so nice to see this. Isn't that wonderful? Say when, Gendre, would suit you?
When?
Now, there are also a whole lot of kudu alarm calling off to the west, beyond the dam, and they're definitely not alarm calling at him. So perhaps it's the Nkuhuma pride, but I'm so happy to see a leopard. I'm just going to try and identify him. It is indeed Mvula. You can see his slightly damaged eye. And I must thank you all again for all the information you've given me on this rather lovely old chap. Not that he's that old. Some mangled ears you can see. It always interests me how much they do drink when they do. That leopard can be pretty much independent of water, but when they do drink, they tend to spend quite a long time doing it. There he is. He's been lying in the dust, you can see he's rather dirty. We'll just let him walk for a little while, see if he doesn't lie down. There we go. Couldn't really be more perfect than that, could it? And like I say, he looks darker than normal because he's clearly been lying in some kind of a dirty soil and rolling in it. He's a very grubby fellow at the moment. Covered in dirt. Wonder why he hasn't managed to clean himself off. There's so many secrets that these animals still have. We so often think of knowing. We so often think we know exactly what's going on with them. You might find that he's rolled in dirt to try and avoid detection. Maybe he was going through an area where he felt that it would be easier for him not to be seen. And now he is going deeply to sleep. This is exactly where Brent last had him, if I'm not mistaken, on the dam wall. Just trying to figure out what he saw there. He did give a little growl. Comes towards us. Isn't that magnificent? He's looking me in the eye. Now he's looking Gendre in the eye. Just listen to his footfall. Magnificent. Okay, we'll just turn around quickly. Right. Assuming I can get the car in gear. Go. There he goes. He's just going gently up the road. You see the buffaloes we go past. They're not particularly concerned about a leopard because he wouldn't chance at trying to attack them unless he was very young and very stupid. And a leopard who gets to 10 years is neither young nor stupid. As soon as he does sit down, I know some of you are worried about his eye still. As soon as he stops moving for any length of time, we'll try and get round and have a good look at it. And while Mvula walks through on the road, I must just tell you that Bob is still in position and communing with a number of buffalo bulls. Stop here for a brief second and see where the leopard goes. See if he goes onto the wall or along the wall. I did hear some kudu alarm calling, like I said, in this direction. It won't be at him because it was quite far away, but he definitely picked his head up as soon as he heard them. Now, we are going into slightly difficult signal areas, so if we lose you, I do apologize. You may go back to Brent quite suddenly, but we'll keep an eye out on this, on old Mvula, and try and stay with him. He's going into some pretty thick stuff through there. Right. Andre, watch your head. Yeah, just watch the knob force here. You may get smacked by them.
Yeah.
Big box.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that. It seems like the gremlins are at play, but how exciting. You guys have found Mvula with James. I am not a little bit jealous. I am a lot jealous. Would have been very nice to see Mvula today, but I'm really happy you guys got to see him with James. We are right now on our far west and northwestern boundary on Arathusa. I heard a little bird tweet that there were some wild dogs around in this area, so I'm just checking the boundary to see if there are any tracks. Quite a nice area. We don't get up here that often, and I think I've only driven around here once before, so always exciting for me. It's like I'm going to a new reserve, so we'll keep a lookout for tracks and whatever else we might be able to find. So you can see the bush is a little bit different here from what we travel on Juma. It's a little bit sandier, so the tree species are a little different, and even the same species grow slightly differently. So we're always going to find there's quite a lot more silver cluster leaves on this part of the reserve, and now we get some nice knobthorn savanna off here to the left, which we don't see too much often. There's sort of knobthorn and guarri thickets. So a good chance we might find some giraffe. They are very fond of this type of area. Quite a lot more acacias here than we would normally see. So I've been trying to find some chojos to keep up with the chojo debate we've been having. For those of you who might be new and don't know what a chojo is a South African colloquialism for a bug. Chojo or nunu is like a little bug, and especially as kids in South Africa, we don't really call them bugs or insects, we call them chojos. Hi Yvonne, welcome on Sunset Safari. Nice to have you on the back of the vehicle. Yvonne has said, is it true that termite mounds glow in the dark? Yvonne, I have never seen a termite mound that glows in the dark. They do stick out on sort of moonlit nights because they are, oh my goodness, a slightly different color. I'm going to try not move too quickly. I'm hoping there are some a little bit further away, but I just suddenly heard this little rustling in the grass next to me, and it happens to be my favorite Franklin species, and they don't sit out and still in the open too often in this area. So very exciting. We've been having some incredible views of the two Franklin species we don't see that often as it gets drier, and this particular one here, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Let's see if you guys can identify this Franklin for me. I did give it away a little bit, saying it was my favorite of Franklin species in the area. You can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. But while we look at these beautiful Franklin, I can hear a few more, little covey of them around, and you see how much more skulking they are than your cresteds and Natal Franklin, which we often see running down the road in front of us. They'd move sort of far more sneakily, heads down, sort of skulk through the grass, try and avoid detection as much as possible. So I don't know if you can hear this constant little, hey, look at that, isn't that exquisite? Such beautiful birds. Can you guys, I don't know if you can hear this, there's a lot of little sort of little contact calls between them. I'm just going to keep quiet for a second, see if you can hear it. Sort of like, so they're constantly in contact, just checking where the others are. Oh, what you got there? I can't see whether it's actually got an insect that it's busy killing, or it's found a nice patch of panicum grass seeds or Eragrostis love grass seeds. And the fact that it's pecking constantly in that same area leads me to believe it's probably seeds it's found. Or maybe even possibly harvested termites, but can't really see. Well done to Donna and George Ann, who were the first to ID it as a Shelley's. And one of the main reasons I love them so much is because of their call. And with quite a few different bird species, we sort of give words to their calls. And I'll see, I'm going to grab it for you now. And so this is probably one of my favorite calls. And this time of the year, you hear it ringing out in the early morning and in the late afternoon just before sunset, and it's a fantastic call. And then moving forward, I'm going to try to sneak a little bit forward, and these guys just seem really relaxed. It's probably because they think we can't see them. You can see how well their camouflage works. That's one of their calls. There's my favorite call now. And I got taught as a kid, it says, to drink a beer, to drink a beer, to drink a beer. But I'll let this lot continue on foraging as they disappear into the longer grass a bit further from the road. But so fantastic to be able to see one of the more shy and retiring angling species. We've been so lucky with Koki, Franklins over the last couple of days, and now we've got Shelleys, the two harder of the Franklin species to see. And now we have a magpie shrike just up ahead. not so shy and retiring of the species we see, but still beautiful nonetheless. But before I forget, we just got to continue with Yvonne. Oh, he took off. Yvonne wants to know about glow-in-the-dark termite mounds. And as I said, I haven't personally ever seen one glow in the dark. They do stand out, particularly the very big ones that are built on in this white sand and this fine light-colored sand, especially on a moonlit night. They do stand out, they reflect from the moon. But Yvonne has set a challenge for me to see if I can find a really big termite mound, or the biggest termite mound in this area. So I will definitely be keeping my eyes out for that, Yvonne. Hi, Rudy from California. Rudy would like to know whether francolins are the cousins to the American quail. I'm not 100% sure, Rudy. We do have African quails as well, and they do fall within the same larger family, but they are quite different. Let me just have a look. Those are all francolins. Our quails are quite a lot smaller, and they've got a very distinct pattern when they fly out of the grass. We do get possibly 3 species of quail here, but I've only ever seen the harlequin and the common in this particular area. We're right on the edge of the blue quail, but the harlequin quail and common quail, the 2 top ones here, we see quite regularly. Especially, well, the common quail moves out of this area completely during this time of the year. And then we've got button quails, which are even smaller, which are down here. And we only get the Karachani button quail here. So they are of the sort of same family, but not that closely related. I would say the African quails and button quails, are probably far closer cousins to your American quails than our francolin. Francolin is sort of more like a grouse, an African grouse, if I had to put it into northern climate terms. So we're keeping on carefully checking for those possibility of wild dog tracks, and so nice to go into a new area that we don't go to that much and have a look around. Well, hello Donna! Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Donna. Donna would like me to spell Jojo for the American audience, that, and I suppose for the rest of the world who doesn't know what Jojo is spelled like. It's quite an interesting spelling, because I think if you had to say it how you would think it was said, it would be a go-go. It is spelled G-O-G-O, and obviously with a lot of us having a bit of Afrikaans influence and whatnot, that sound with the G is from the Afrikaans language, so it's a Jojo or a Joja. It can be spelled, I knew it more as a Jojo, which is G-O-G-O, but I think some people do call it a Joja, which is G-O-G-A, or a Nunu, which is N-U-N-U. And then Dennis, also from Massachusetts. Dennis would like to know, do we see, when there are big fires that come through the bush, do we see any storks or secretary birds taking advantage of the insects that are disturbed by the fires? You would be amazed how many birds take advantage. Then it's not only the storks when they're around. Secretary birds, not so much, but the raptors. So even your bigger eagles will all be there trying to catch the locust and that. And then your rollers, lilac-breasted rollers. But the one who really makes the most out of it is a fork-tailed drongo. He's right there on the face of the flames, picking up every ho-ho that tries to get out of there. So we're just going to stop here and listen for a second. We never know what we might hear. And, well, listening this morning helped us find that lioness. So hopefully we hear something that leads us on the right direction towards an animal. Okay, so we can't hear anything just yet, and we are exploring an area that I have spent very little time in since I've been at WildEarth. We're right on the western boundary of Arathusa, and there has been a report of wild dogs to the west of here, so I'm slowly meandering around the area around the western boundary, and it's quite nice. I think I've only been here once or twice before, and it feels like we're almost in a different reserve. Vim, how many times have you been here?
I've been on this road.
On this road?
Once.
Once. So Vim's only been here once as well. So quite nice for both of us, getting out and exploring a different area of our traverse. Hi, Pamela from upstate New York. Welcome on the back of my vehicle on this sunset safari. Pamela said, speaking about glow-in-the-dark termite mounds, do we get glow-in-the-dark fireflies? We do get fireflies and glowworms that do glow in the dark. Unfortunately, those are almost exclusively something we will see in the summer, and we don't really get them during the winter months at all. So like with a lot of insect species, they go into sort of hibernation or pupation during the winter months where there's not a lot of water. A lot of them are very reliant on plants as a food source. So when it is dry and cold like this, we don't get as many insects around. But I did I just thought I saw something fly into my jersey there, since we're speaking of chojos. Oh, there he is. I did see something fly into my jersey. And that is quite unusual to see this guy at this time of year. Don't fly away. Again. You got him there. See him? There we go. It's a little fruit chafer. Quite often, I know my grandmother used to have quite serious wars with these. My grandmother, being of good English descent, was very much in love with her rose garden and fought a constant battle against this insect and other, well, not this specific one, but members of his family that are really well known for eating roses. Very, very, very pretty insect. A fruit chafer beetle. I am going to have to admit I've forgotten the name of this one, but I have seen it before, and you can see it almost looks like he's got two little yellow hearts on his back, and incredibly pretty and shiny. I'm going to try see if I can, if he doesn't try fly away. There we go. See if I can get him a bit closer. How close can I go there, Vim, so you can get a good view? So when?
That's about it.
That's about it. Okay, there we go. So you can have a look there. You can see, I'm going to turn him sideways now.
It's close.
Too close? There. And you can see those little antennae there moving. So he's not quite sure about me yet, but he must be one of the last of the season. If I'm going to put him back down on the dash so we can get a better look. If you guys might know or have seen this guy on the live drives before with one of the other guides, please feel free to let me know what it is, or he doesn't want to get off. me now to become my friend. And you can do that by emailing us at questions@WildEarth. Oh, there he goes. Let him go be, and off into the distance. No harm, no foul. He did accidentally fly into my jersey though. But if any of you do recognize that fruit chafer from possibly one of the other live drives and that, let me know, and you can send the answers to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. Well, it was nice, since we've been speaking about the bugs, for one to timely arrive. Hi, Carrie, who's 15 and from Costa Rica. Aren't you a lucky fish, Carrie? You've got some amazing bird watching in the forest of Costa Rica. Definitely on my bucket list to get there and do some bird watching there one day. Carrie would like to know, how many pups does a wild dog normally have? So, Carrie, a wild dog pack, only the alpha pair will breed, so only the one female in the group will breed. And generally, they will give birth to anything from about, I think the least I've heard of is about 6, but there's sometimes a few less than that, but all the way up to 20, and I think in extreme cases over 20 pups in a litter. But it is that time of the year at the moment where wild dogs are busy denning. So we're just hoping there's a small pack that I think is the pack we're looking for from the information I got, and they haven't denned yet. And alpha female is very pregnant, so we are hoping she dens somewhere in this area so we get a chance to see them a bit more often. But that big pack, the half-tailed pack we saw on a live safari, and Vim spotted something. What'd you get there?
Yeah, the more back.
Oh, well spotted, Vim. That we saw on the sunrise safari a few mornings ago. They, I've heard, have denned, but they have denned to the south of us, and they have had 9 pups, but that doesn't mean anything, and they are a big pack, so they will move quite long distances to hunt, and they'll sometimes hunt twice a day. Sorry guys, it was a female kudu then. She's just meandered around into that buffalo thorn thicket. Just trying to get a view of her. If we go forward a little bit, but I don't think, unfortunately, we're going to be able to see much. And especially with this wind, she's going to be keeping herself quite cemented to these nice thick areas and keeping quite still to try avoid the predators. So, looks like the gremlins have been evacuated, and James has managed to stay with Mvula, so really exciting. So we're going to cross back to James while we continue to search this new area, and we'll be back with you a little bit later in the drive.
Okay, that way, so nose to the left.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Jiga. I greet you with the news that I'm afraid we've lost not only Gendre's head, but indeed the leopard as well. Gendre is looking white-knuckled on the back. We knocked the aerial off, we bashed his head. You can see we picked up quite a lot of foliage on the way. all over here. Gendre, I have taped him together as best I can with some gaffer tape. He's all right. Whether he'll stay or not, I'm not sure, but we hope he does. So it was a lovely sighting of Mvula. He was very dirty, which indicates to me he's been lying in a bush or maybe wrestling a kill underneath a bush somewhere safe, and maybe he came to have a drink before he carried on eating. I'm not sure. Lions will do that. I haven't seen leopards do it before, but it's certainly not impossible. We'll keep an eye on sort of in this general area, but I'm afraid we just simply couldn't get the car in there. We got it stuck once or twice. Like I say, damaged ourselves quite severely in the cause, but here we are. So our plan at the moment is to go back towards, I know I've centered quite a lot around Buffelshoek Dam today, but we're going to do a bit more of that. There were kudu alarm calling exactly around here, just as we spotted Mvula, and I'm really hoping that Pride of Lions is going to pop out at some stage. If they don't, we've already had a magnificent cat sighting, and we'll head back towards the water. There were a whole lot of buffalo there, and we're getting to the time of the day when the birds will come down and start to drink, and we might find one or two other things on the way. Okay, I'm still looking out for some examples of fire damage or some fire climax species perhaps, and I'll show you them as soon as I can. Right. Hi, Pamela. You seem to think that poor old Mvula's feet are out of proportion with his body. No, that's pretty much what a leopard's feet look like, so he's not going to get any bigger. A leopard reaches maximum size probably at about, or maximum height at about 4 years, and maybe maximum weight about 2 years later at about 6 years. So no, he's pretty much that size. And I think you'll find that their feet, certainly on the cats, if you look at the cats, they also have the same sort of proportion of feet. And what that does is that it allows them to spread the weight when they're moving, and so they can move a lot more silently. Monkey, you can get him. There's a monkey there standing on 2 feet, just like a human being. I know he's behind a branch, but I don't want to move. It's such a totally incongruous thing to see. Vervet monkey. We'll follow down this road. Sarah from Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio. Lovely question. Thank you for it. Please keep them coming. We love hearing from you at Dayton. You ask, do leopards not keep themselves clean like domestic cats? The answer is, until very recently, about 10 minutes ago, I thought they did, yes. That's why I'm confused as to why he's so dirty. I think There could be any number of reasons, but I think mainly he's been rolling in the dirt for some reason. But he will definitely take the time to clean himself over the next few hours, I suspect. Thanks, Sarah. So that monkey, I don't know if you noticed, but when he was standing, he looks awkward standing. He doesn't look like he's comfortable standing, and there's a very good reason for that. Monkeys, and in fact, we are the only primate whose hips. I'm actually going to do a slight demonstration in front of the vehicle here. In fact, I might do it on the bonnet of the vehicle. Andre, this will be a first for WildEarth, and indeed the concept of live internet game drive. So, an animal that lives on all fours like this doesn't have their hips like ours. Their hips are forward, so that when they put their feet underneath them, that's the most sort of powerful place for them to be. Now, when a monkey stands up, like I am doing now, don't ever confuse me for a monkey, our hips are shifted a lot further forward on our bodies. And that's why for us, it looks pretty easy to do. I thought I heard something behind us. But for a monkey, because the hips are so far back, they have to stand like that, and they've almost got to arch their backs up in order to stand, and it's very unstable. That's why when a monkey stands, they stand and they sort of rock from side to side. For us, because the hips are so much forward, it's easy. And we're the only animal in the world that has that special design. And the one disadvantage of it, huge disadvantage of it, is that it makes the birth canal extremely narrow. And that's why for so many hundreds of years, before the advent of cesarean section and before the advent of doctors and obstetricians who would help us give birth, childbirth was so dangerous for women, because that birth canal, because of the shift of the hips forward, is extremely narrow. I mean, coupled with the fact that our heads are obviously much larger than any other animals. Right, on we go. I hope you enjoyed my little bonnet demonstration. Probably would have enjoyed it more if I'd fallen off, but I didn't. And we will continue trying to find the lions. Okay. Little suspicious that this road that I'm on isn't in fact a road, but we'll see where it takes us. It's taking us in the general direction of that water. Ah, there is the water. Entirely convinced this is a road. There's a nyala to our left. Yeah. Sorry. Hello again, Gracie from Dayton's Children's Hospital. While we look at that beautiful nyala bull just moving out of frame there. You want to know about the baby leopard, and I think you mean Shadow's cub Sindile. And Shadow's cub Sindile was seen about 3 days ago crossing onto Juma. Remember, he's about 9 or 10 months old now. We think he's still fine, and he will spend more and more time away from his mum, and so it's not bad for him to be spending time away from his mum. Just remember, leopards are very difficult to see, Gracie, or difficult to find, unless you have eyes like Gendre. And so we don't see them every day, and even if we go looking, it's often very difficult for us to find them. We're approaching the water now. There are a lot of beefalo bulls. And obviously, the bachelor of Buffel's Hook. Poor old Paul. I don't want to frighten these beefalos too much, if at all. They do tend to get a little frightened by us bouncing around in the bush. They may just have to deal with it this time round. Hello, fellows. There we go. Not so bad. Now, when I first got here, I was told that stopping at buffaloes was considered something of a, desperation stake. I quite enjoy them, so I don't mind stopping with them. Especially with old Bob in the background there. It's quite a nice idea to have a bit of a look at him now that we can get this close and see if he is, as I suspect, a young bull or if he's a bit older. He's definitely got some damage on his back, which I haven't noticed before. And that is most likely from a fight with another hippo bull. Very peaceful afternoon now. The buffalo can hardly keep their eyes open, chewing away at their cud. Can we just have a look at the water thickneys there, Gendre, if you don't mind? They're to the right of that buffalo, with the chap with the Roman nose just behind them. There they are. And while we zoom in on there, oh, great. So often, especially on doing a live drive like this, you'll miss that because they do it at the most unexpected moments. And that's a bit of a territorial display that he's doing there. He's showing us that he's big and strong. Some African folklore says that he's doing that to show the gods that he hasn't eaten any fish. I'm not convinced of that myself. Territorial display. And they'll do it even when there aren't other hippos around. You know, they'll do it possibly for our benefit. Isn't that great? And possibly for the benefit of the buffalo, but I think it's mainly for us. He's watching us quite carefully. Anyway, back to the water thickneys, and you can see that buffalo there's got an extremely Roman nose, and I suspect he's probably broken it once or twice, fighting with other buffalo, bashing his nose against their horns, and that's not an entirely unusual look for a buffalo, although he looks like Julius Caesar. In fact, he's quite comical. Chewing away at his cud with his broken nose. not sure Julius Caesar lived for as long as this buffalo did, but if he'd grown old, that's what he would have looked like. Two little water thickneys, little knockabout here, picking up invertebrates that live in the water. And then you can see a wagtail to the, there we go, just in the light there, feeding on the invertebrates that are feeding on the dung of that buffalo. So that's a fairly fresh dung pat that the pied wagtail is knocking about. And he'll be picking up little beetles and fly larvae and other beetle larvae, of course, that are that's in the dung. In summer, there's obviously a lot more going on in the dung than there is now. No dung beetles in the wintertime. They'll only come out after the first rains. Right, I think that's probably enough for these chaps. Let's go on. I have now covered the boundary 3 times today. So I've now covered this boundary about 3 times today. I'm probably going to give up on it. Lions have not come south as suspected. My bones have lied to me. And while I chastise them, we're going to go across to Brent, who I believe has some questions or answers or something to a challenge that he gave you. Good luck with him, and we will see you a bit later.
Well, I hope that termite mound was big enough for you. And now my next challenge is to James to find a termite mound that is bigger than that. We've guessed it about between 3 and 3.5 meters, which is between 11 and 12 feet. So let's see if we can find a big one. That's definitely the biggest one I've seen since I've been in this part of the world. Unfortunately, no wild dogs yet, but we are still on the hunt. And I took that opportunity to use the termite mound like a lot of the predators do, to get a high vantage, look out over the bush. Unfortunately, all I managed to see was some trees, but that doesn't mean it can't work other times. So we're going to continue on, see what else we can find, and we're just going to stop a little bit as we get closer to this termite mound here and have a look. There's some droppings on the edge of the mound, and I think we might have to come check this out at some point. Just from the amount of droppings and the size of the droppings, I think this might be the new improved and sort of can't get much bigger than this Mount Mongoose. It looks to be dwarf mongoose that have been utilizing the holes in the side of this old termite mound, and so well, big thank you to Sharon, Matt and Heather, who have found the Latin name for that fruit chafer beetle. I'm going to try to pronounce it now, but I think I'm probably going to have a better chance when I get back and I'm able to read it. Pedenothoria hina is what I think. If my pronunciation is absolutely shocking, please forgive me. Pedinohina. Presvitata. I'll let you know once I've had a chance to have a look at the spelling of the Latin, and I'll get back to you on that. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any tracks of anything. Unfortunately, it seems that only the presenters know a little bit of Latin here. I think we're going to have to up the rest of our staff's general training. I think Latin should be a compulsory subject going forward. So really beautiful time of the day, and so excited to be in a part we don't come to too much.
Over there. Hello everybody, sorry, big panic. Brent crash cut. Don't know what happened to Wendy. She's still a recalcitrant old bag at times. I believe that I've been challenged to finding a termite mound larger than 3.5 meters tall. First of all, I'm going to ask that Brent actually show me this mound, because I'm not entirely sure I believe him. But I will accept the challenge, and we'll see if we can find your termite mound larger than 3.5 meters. Not sure I've seen a termite mound here that's big, that is that big, but I'm going to do my best. In the meanwhile, we've just left the water. One more pass through here during the course of the evening, as it gets a bit cooler. And you know, they only get active around when it gets a little cooler and almost goes to darkness. Of course, if they're sitting on a kill somewhere, then we're not going to see them. They'll be there for a long time, if it's a large kill. Hello, Valerie in Pennsylvania. You've got a primate question. Are there any other kind of monkeys we get here? The answer is no, but we do get 3 other kinds of primates. We get the chacma baboon, which is much larger than that monkey. And then we get the bush babies, the lesser bush baby, and the thick-tailed bush baby, which is a bit bigger than that. We don't so much get that around in this particular area, but they will be around. So there are 4 primate species that we get in this area. But no other monkeys. In fact, the only other monkey in South Africa that we get is something called a Somango monkey. And they tend to live on the coast or in forested areas. So off towards the mountains in the Drakensberg, near the Blade River Canyon, then you'll find some Somango monkeys. They look very similar, they've just got slightly fluffier faces. I'm not seeing any form of termite mound that big. Joanne in Michigan, you pose the ultimately impossible question to answer. You had the privilege of watching a hippo being born in 2010, so 5 years ago. on the Gowrie cam, and that hippo, I'm just going to stop here while those, no, they're not the birds I thought they were. You wanted, and you called him Bob because he likes to bob up and down. Beautiful Cokie Franklin on the road. I'm just going to stop here and see if we can't get a bit of a shot of him. That's the female to the right. And just, there we go, there's a not so brave male running across after him. Sorry about that. Oh, there's another one there on the left-hand side. So, Joanne, you want to know, you called your hippo Bob because of his habit of bobbing up and down. That Franklin is not made of very stern stuff. And you want to know, could this be the same Bob? Joanne, it's possible. It's not impossible at all. We're not that far away. That hippo could be about 5 years old. So, yeah, it's certainly possible. Would I stake money on it? No, I wouldn't. I mean, he really could have come from anywhere, but it's certainly not impossible. What a privilege that must have been to have seen him born. Right. Definitely giving up on the lions now. I'd love to know how Brent Leo Smith thinks he found a 3.5 meter tall termite mound. I shall ask him to measure it for me. I think Brent thinks he is 3.5 meters tall. And so we're going to pop across to Brent again while I go in search of this termite mound and attempt to prove him wrong. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, folks. Sorry, it seems like we had a few gremlins climbing back onto Wendy, chasing us around. But we've now found something a little bit more interesting than a gremlin. And if we look up to the top of this knobthorn tree in front of us, there we go. You can see there's a white-backed vulture on the nest. I'm trying to see if they've got a chick at the moment. It looks like it just from the adult's behavior there. And while so it would have been a good day to be a vulture. Hot and windy, lots of thermals, so they would have been able to cover a lot of ground in search of carcasses. Just hopefully pops her head up shortly. But while we're waiting for that, I was busy answering a question about mantid species when unfortunately the gremlin climbed aboard, and the question was from Dennis in Massachusetts, asking whether we had mantids here and do they eat their mates like American mantids. We do. We have a lot of species of mantids, and they do. Oh, unfortunately it looks like she's actually settling down, getting lower in the nest. Trying to listen. Oh, you saw a little head pop there. Trying to listen to see if I can hear any sort of begging for food, but I don't, so it's possible they could still be on eggs. You can see, here we go, moving very gingerly, which makes me think there might be an egg or a baby in there. I can't remember offhand vulture's breeding seasons. I'm just going to double check quickly. So my book doesn't have any information about when they do give birth. I think they might even throughout the year, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe you guys could have a look at that for me. Could you let me know when white-backed vultures are most likely to lay eggs and rear young? And you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag #SafariLive if you're on Twitter. Oh, hang on a second, I've just spotted something. And I think I know what it is. Definitely know what it is. Bit smelly. I'm going to pop it on the dash so you can have a better look at it. But I'm quite sure that's come from that nest from one of the adults. So a smelly vulture's feather. Probably just shed. And you can see it's really coarse from getting stuck into those carcasses and that. And this would have been one of the primaries on the wing feathers. So they need them to be quite firm and strong, unlike sort of what you would expect from soft feathers, and that's obviously for flight. I don't want to handle this too much. It's quite smelly, and there we go. And have a look. I think it's been out of the vulture for quite some time, but I'm not going to keep this feather. So, quite a few vulture species are under threat in Africa in general, and it's quite a sad story. A lot of it's due to habitat loss. And is that another vulture on another nest? It is two. Looks like two other vultures over there. So this is really great to see. I mean, we've got 3 vultures' nests, it looks like, within a very small area. And they are quite picky with what trees they nest in, and they generally do like knobthorns in this area. So there's another 2 white-backed vultures there. I would say the bottom nest is the active nest, and the one on top is just sitting on it. And they've actually used an old red-billed buffalo weaver nest to set as a platform, so lazy vultures didn't build their own. But this is really great to see because they are quite threatened due to a couple of different reasons. One is the muti trade, or the trade in sort of magic items. And vultures' body parts are quite sought after in the traditional medicine. If you are to eat a concoction of a vulture's eyes, because they can see so far, you're said to be able to see into the future. And then other different body parts are used for various different traditional medicine. A lot of it more sort of on the occult side rather than the sort of herbal side. And that's where you have very different traditional doctors. In most African cultures, in this area you have sangomas, which do quite a lot of the herbal stuff, but also deal in the occult a little bit. When you have a nyanga, which is purely sort of a herbalist doctor who will make from different plants and roots, and that will make remedies. But it is great to see quite a few vultures' nests around, and we would love to see more of them, and it would help us find the lions a little bit as well. But really great to see a couple of vultures' nests. They're settling down for the night now. It's getting a bit cooler, the thermals are gone, so we're going to let them be and see what else we can find. Hi, Gail from Richmond. Gail would like to know, do vultures only scavenge, or do they kill their own prey from time to time? Gail, there is records of vultures making their own kills when need be, and certain species of vultures do it far more often. Like the white-headed vulture, let's watch out we don't get a bomb from above. There we go, safely under. So Gail, they do, white-headed vultures are recorded more commonly doing that than the other species, but there are records of them making their own kills. But it is far more unusual than them scavenging. They'd much prefer to scavenge. Well, thank you very much, Carly, Rosalie, and MJ. Vultures breed during the dry season, so it's almost definite that there's an egg, and they are incubated for 43 days. So we'll have to definitely come back and check on that spot to see if we can hear the squawkings of a young vulture in a couple of days or in a week or two. Just so this area sorry guys, I just disappeared there for a second. I'm listening to the Game Drive channel. This area, as we're coming down towards the drainage, is really one of my favorite types of area. Wherever I'm in the bush, I always get a sort of sense of excitement as I come down here. And you've got this short grass that's fed on by the prey species and the possibility of predators, and there's just this on the other side. One of my favorite trees when they're big are leadwoods, and there's a little bit of a leadwood forest on the other side of the drainage line here, and we're going to sneak forward into it. I'm going to be on the Game Drive radio for a second while we creep through there. Liam, do you copy? So I believe there was quite a bit of discussion with James earlier as we started the Sunset Safaris about fire and fire damage. So if we have a look over here, is that good for you there? And we can actually see some remnant ash from last year, and this is very, very white ash, and I can actually tell what tree it's from because of that. Just give me a second, I'm going to go grab some. Pop it there where you guys can see it nicely. So there's a lot of debate on how much burning is good and how much burning is bad, and with the controlled burning. Africa is a fire climax biome though, so a lot of species need fire for the dispersal of seeds, and also from a grass point of view, grass really needs fire. You burn all the moribund and dead grass, and it gives a chance for the same grass, not new grass. It just cleans off those tops and the grass grows from the roots again. But if we look at this particular, I mean, it's almost like chalk. It is absolutely fantastic. You could add a bit of water in this, and you could use it as a bit of paint. But we had a little quiz about the ash of this tree not so long ago for those regular viewers. And it is a burnt leadwood. So I'm going to show you something that was traditionally used, but hang on one second. If we're going to do this traditionally, we got to do this traditionally properly. I'm just going to hang on to this for a little bit longer, and I'm going to find another tree, and I'm going to show you how to brush your teeth traditionally with traditional toothpaste and a traditional toothbrush. I just need to find the right tree that goes along with it. You can also, the Bushmen quite often used to use burnt leadwood ashes, something to mix in with fat as a white in the paint. So you can use that, and obviously me being me, I like to make a big mess wherever I go. So I've made a mess, and I'll probably make a bigger mess as I continue to try brush my teeth.
We're live.
Hello everybody. Sorry, lost my radio communications for a second there. Nice to have you back with us. Not sure what happened to me old pal Brent. I believe he was talking to you about some vultures. I have just spotted what I believe to be an award-winning termite mound. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is an award-winning termite mound. Now what I'm going to do is position myself such that Jandre will be able to get me in picture with the setting sun at my back, and you will then be able to take a screenshot and please tweet it to #SafariLive so that Mr. Leo Smith will get a picture of it. Here we go. 3.5 meters, 3.5 meters. Please observe. This termite mound is at least 4 meters high, Brent. And I can safely tell you there's not a termite in it. Wonderful view from up here. So I hope you got a bit of a screenshot of that so you can show him. Right. Enough funny business. I have heard on the radio that there are some other rangers looking for the Kunyuma pride north of us. So they're obviously not in the area at the moment. Sorry about that. Not really much I can do about it, I'm afraid. So the day is starting to lose its edge now. By that I mean the heat is starting to come off. It's going to that lovely time of the day when things just quieten down before the sort of deep breath in that the nature takes as we go into the night. Very reflective time, I find, for me. So whenever I'm in the bush alone, I find a time like this, I normally like to go onto a high point like that termite mound, possibly with a drink, possibly without, and just sit and contemplate the sinking sun and the land around. So our plan from here is going to be to head, excuse me, more to the middle of the reserve. See if we can't pick up. We're in the area where we lost Mvula a little bit earlier, and so I'm hoping he might pop out, but if he doesn't, maybe his tracks will, and we'll just see from there. I also believe that Brent found you some ash, and so the fire discussion is probably quite neatly wrapped. But I do quite want to show you a grass species. I've been looking for it, and naturally when I've been looking for it, I haven't found it. That is crucial, or that is depends quite heavily on fire. I seem to be on a slightly different road from the one that I thought I was. We're back at Buffelshoek Dam. never mind. A quick turn around this bush. Got absolutely no communication, I'm afraid, with our final control. So if you... Okay. She's back. Hi, John in California. Thank you for your question. You say, are lots of fires caused by lightning strikes? Yes, they are. Especially when you think about what the bush looks like when the first storms come over. Now, what happens is, when our winter comes to an end, the spring starts in September, it gets beastly hot very fast, and then come October, it gets even hotter. And in places like Botswana, they call that suicide month because it's just so hot and there's no rain. And then, sort of mid-October, the storms start to come in over the mountains from here. And they tend to strike lightning and thunder, but they very seldom drop any water. And it's those lightning strikes, come October and September, that tend to set the very dry bush into a blaze. Especially if the year before has been a particularly wet one. And so the fuel load, which is all the grass, is quite high. Hello, Catherine in Texas. You'd like to know, other than the incredible termite mound which I managed to find, quite by chance actually, I didn't even know it was there. Other than that, what is the highest point on the reserve? I'm going to guess here, there are two high points. One is actually quite near the final control, where our aerials are, and then the other is actually where you saw us just beyond the dam there, on the northeastern corner. That's one of definitely the highest points on this particular little reserve. But within the whole Kruger Park, so the whole, I'm just going to stop here because I think we might lose our signal to you. Within the entire Kruger Park, it goes from about probably 250 meters above sea level, which is pretty low down, all the way up to about 550 to 600 at some of the highest sort of rocky outcrops, or koppies as we call them. And in the Lubombo Mountains off to the west, east, sorry, in fact, I think it'll probably go up to, it might even go up to 900 meters to 1,000 meters. I'll have to check that up. Maybe you could have a look for me. The Lubombo Mountains, I think, would have the highest point in the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. And I would guess at about 800 meters. But the average height here, around where we are now, is 350 to 450 meters above sea level, and the land is very gently undulating. You can see that it's very ancient, so most of the soil is weathered away, most of the rock is weathered away. You don't find a lot of rocks around here, and you don't find huge numbers of...
Where there? Which should I go? They're crossing the road. Oh, I can see them there. Okay, let me just change my angle of attack. So welcome back. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about making a complete fool of myself, brushing my teeth with ash in the bush. I just want to have a look at these tracks. It's such a beautiful time of the day. The male leopard tracks, well spotted them. Okay, we're definitely going to have a look at those now. I'm afraid just the angle of that they are at the time of the day, it's going to be very difficult for you guys to see them. But I'm going to try see if they continue, which way they go. Hopefully not towards the gremlins. I think these tracks unfortunately have been driven over. I think they have been followed up on. I'm going to try get an update. But we're very close to the Arathusa Dam, and I'm hoping we might see some hippos out of the water a bit closer than the ones we were looking at earlier at Sydney's. Hi Virginia. Virginia, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Nice to have you on the back of the vehicle again, Virginia. Virginia would like to know that ash that I showed you, would that burn for hours? It looks like a very hard wood. Virginia, leadwood stumps and branches can burn for days, even up to a week. Well, it doesn't look like the hippos are out of the water. They're very much in the water, but I suppose no better place to make a fool out of myself than when I've got some hippos to watch me. So Penny, Pine, Ruth and MJ would like to know how old that termite mound I was standing on was. I would guess that one is well over 1,000 years old. It's currently not in use, but very difficult to say, but definitely over 1,000 years. Okay, now I need to get my toothpaste ready. I'm just going to jump out of the vehicle for this. I need to get my potential toothbrushes ready. Oops. And definitely need some, oh, there it is, water ready. Yeah, let me try to see. Maybe that side. Better, everyone can see better.
Okay, sure.
Okay, let me move around. To my potential toothpaste, toothbrushes. Whoopsie. Some water. Okay, so I've never attempted this before, so this is a first for me as well. So we need a nice bit of guarri bush. I'm going to prune it. You always want a bit of a thick guarri bush, and I didn't cut it, I broke it, and I did that on purpose. So I didn't want a nice sharp edge, I wanted to get that broken bit there because it makes some nice bristles. Then give it a good chew, and now you can see we got some toothbrush bristles. Bim is looking at me with absolute shock and horror at the moment. There we go. So let's break off a nice piece of leadwood ash, put it onto our toothbrush. I'm not sure this is how you're supposed to do it. Here we go. It doesn't taste actually that bad at all. A little bit like chalk. Very high lime content. I was expecting this to be far, far worse. It's actually not thoroughly unpleasant. And you can feel the granules doing the cleaning job. Actually not that bad. Not a bad aftertaste. And very high in limon and a bit of calcium. So actually a very good way to clean your teeth if you don't have a toothbrush and toothpaste handy. But if you do, and look, if you have a look, the hippos have actually come closer to inspect my shenanigans. Hello, hippos. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was far more pleasant than I thought it was going to be. I seem to put better tasting things in my mouth than James. But clean this off. Of course, I make a mess wherever I go. So let's give it a good dust. And let's carry on. Did you enjoy that, hippopotamus? Was that funny? We'll see if they start laughing. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, and some Egyptian geese disappearing over the wall there. Nom 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 nom. Well, there we go. And the hippos definitely found it funny. Them, how much ash do I have over my face at the moment? A little bit. Okay, not too bad. Well, let's continue on. Oh, look. Let's have a look if that does it again. Might. What we missed there. Let's just sit with these hippos for a little bit because they might start moving quite a bit now. That one was actually doing rolls, so you just saw his feet coming up as he went over and over. No, it's a shy hippo. So old Bob, James's friend, if he had to arrive around here, he would get a very unfriendly greeting from the dominant bull here. And I wouldn't want to be Bob meeting a big hippo bull who's trying to protect his girls. And lots of Egyptian geese making noise. But these hippos are going to be getting ready to head out and see if they can find some nice grazing. And if we pan off to the left, you can see the grass here is so wonderfully short and it almost looks like a manicured lawn. And during the summer it will definitely, and that's definitely from the hippos. They like to keep this short. They like the short grasses. Oh, I'm sitting on a thorn. Well, have a good evening, hippopotami. The game drive radio is a little bit difficult to understand at the moment, so I'm going to be listening a little bit carefully. So just excuse me if I'm not with you for a few seconds. I'm just trying to find out what's been going on. Oh, hi, Jimelin from Oklahoma. Oh, Jimelin, we're going to get to your question in a second. I just spotted another Franklin species, one we haven't seen today yet. And that's actually now because they've got that red naked skin on their face. They're no longer called Franklins, they're called spur files. And that is a Swanson's spur file. And it looks like a female. Just disappearing across the road. Whoops. Alright, Jimmerlin. Jimmerlin would like to know what happens when the queen termite dies. Who takes her place? Well, Jimmerlin, I'm not quite sure how selection in the termite mounds works. Maybe if you guys could have a look online and let me know how the next queen of the termites is chosen, so to speak. I'm not 100% sure. I think I'm not going to gander a guess when I don't know. So please, could you guys let me know? And you can do that by sending me an email at questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Sean coming. Copy, thanks Lee. Are there any updates for Safari and Dow? Copy, there's an Gonzo over Madoda Ingwe heading sort of southwest from, I think it's 15th crossing, and it's on top of the road being dragged. I'm not sure when the road was dragged, but there are vehicle tracks on top of it. Copy, I think those trucks are heading out of our Traverse area, so I've left the area. Sorry guys, just catching up with Louis, seeing what else is out there and what's around. A bit quiet on Arathusa this afternoon, but we've had so much fun. You've got to see me brush my teeth with ash. And we found the biggest termite mound. I definitely think it's bigger than James's, even though I know he's going to claim his might look bigger because he's smaller. And I think I've definitely taken the higher ground after being called a chimpanzee by him on the Sunrise Drive, and I haven't decided to lower myself to degrading him too much. Hi Mary from Michigan. Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Mary. Mary says when her grandmother used to make soap, they used to use wood ash. I'm not sure which species they use. They asked you, would you use leadwood to make a soap? And in the past, yes. The Voortrekkers were the first Dutch settlers that one of the first colonialists in Africa made soap out of wood ash and animal fat, and that was the main two ingredients in soap. And I'm quite sure a tree like a leadwood with its high lime content would have definitely been used. But maybe Vim knows. They use the Voortrekkers, if they used leadwood to make soap.
They use animal fats.
Animal, yeah. Okay, we're not sure. Well, if I remember correctly, a lot of the sort of colonists, animal fat, wood ash were definitely two of the key components that were used to make soap. Maybe you guys can have a look, see if you can find any sort of African soap recipes that contain wood ash and specifically leadwood. You guys can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. We've just spotted a little, looks like a female duiker, and she's keeping quite still for us. How nice of her. They're always very sweet because they got that little tuft of hair in the middle of their head. While I was growing up, my mother had a few of them as pets, and they had a great affiliation for acacia seeds. And the inside of an acacia seed, specifically an acacia called a scented thorn, has a very round and grey appearance. So they would eat the pod around the seed and then spit the pods out on the couch. And one duiker who liked doing this the most, his name was Hamish. And when we'd get people who weren't used to the bush and whatnot at home, they would think that because we had these wild animals, our house was infested with ticks. But meanwhile, it wasn't ticks, it was the seeds of a scented thorn, or Acacia nilotica. And we were actually successful in releasing all the duikers we had as pets back onto our family farm, where we used to see them from time to time, and over the years they sort of became less and less habituated to us, and still would come visit the garden occasionally, but went on to live their lives out in the bush. So we'll leave that little lady chewing away. Hi Gilly in Wisconsin, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Always great having you on the back of the vehicle. Gilly is asking about eagles' nests. Gilly let me know that the American bald eagle, the males build the nest to attract a mate, and they will then mate for life and then defend that nest against other eagles, I'm assuming. Quite a lot of African eagles will reuse nests and do mate for a long time together. I'm not 100% sure whether it's life, but and they do build those big stick platform nests in this area, and they do use them year after year after year. In this area, probably one of the more common ones that does that is the Warburg's eagle. They will almost always nest in the same nest, and they'll migrate away and then come back and nest in that same nest. And then also African hawk eagles will utilize the same nest year after year. They will change nests if the nest falls down or is raided by something like baboons. They will move nests then, but generally they will try to utilize the same nest year after year, and the same goes with vultures as well. Thanks very much for that, Kelly. Really interesting to find out a little bit about some of the North American birds that I don't know that much about. Hi John in California. John is saying painted wolves or African wild dogs are similar to American wolves in the fact that only the alpha pair will mate. And are there any other species that are like that? John, there are, and one we see quite regularly on the live safaris is one of my little favorites, the smallest member of the carnivore family in Africa. The dwarf mongoose, and they also only the alpha pair will mate in that situation. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure there's a couple of other of the mongoose or cusaman species that also only then the alpha pair will mate. Hi, Joanne from Michigan. Joanne is asking about the duiker we had as a pet. We actually had about 3 or 4. And my mom used to take them on from the Natal Parks Board, which was then a sort of nature conservation for the area, and they would have been rescued from either poaching incidences, car accidents, or anywhere where humans had intervened, and then we would try rear them and then let them go on our farm. So they were all not taken from the wild intentionally, but they would have been brought through to the nature conservation officials for a reason that might have been caused by, definitely caused by people, and then there would be certain individuals that were then given these animals to care for and try reintroduce into the wild. We had lots of different pets growing up. The sad thing is certain animals you can't really reintroduce into the wild, like your banded mongoose and dwarf mongoose and that. Because they're such a social species, they then immediately bond onto you, your family, because you've been looking after them. You are become their business. And we had two mongoose. Lord Montague was the last one, and he was a male mongoose, and he really ruled the roost of the house. And again, when people who weren't used to the bush used to come visit, one of the things a mongoose does is he jumps on your foot and he wipes his anal gland on you, and that's him just saying hello. But if you get some city folk, this can be quite a disturbing experience, and then they jump up and scream, which causes him to get quite aggressive, bite. Or some of the funniest things I've seen is some very large men run from a mongoose species this big because they got a fright when he was scent marking their shoe, and sort of go away, and that excited noise got the mongoose excited, so he'd try to bite them, and this huge 6-foot man running away from this tiny kilogram weighing mongoose going as he chased them across the garden. So we had good fun with Lord Montague. Thank you very much, Susan from Long Island in New York. It says traditional African soap is made out of animal fat, lye and wood ash. Thank you very much, Susan, for that. So yes, I'm quite sure woods like leadwood would have definitely been used for soap, just like the sort of trailblazers in the US making their way across the west and whatnot would have also used very similar things to what the colonialists would have used in Africa. Hi, Pamela. Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Pamela. Nice to have you on the vehicle. Pamela would like to know, since we were driving across the airstrip, do you guys fly any small planes? Unfortunately not, Pamela. I have held the sort of controls and pushed a few of the pedals before, but while we were growing up, the pilot in our family was my mother, and she used to have a small Cessna that she used to fly around the bush in northern Botswana. So Mom's the pilot in the family. It's not current anymore, but she flew for quite a few years and actually had a little air charter company in the bush. Getting a bit nippy, so I'm just going to pop my jersey on. So in case any of you are new or logged in a little late, just a quick update on what's been happening this sunset safari. VM and I went to have a look at a hippo beach full of hippos where they were basking in the sun, and then we've been patrolling an area we don't normally go to and just looking for the report that possibly might be wild dogs in that area. Unfortunately, that we came out a bit short-handed there, but James was really great for him to be able to find Mvula, and you guys have a view of Mvula and keep a close look on that eye of his. And since then we've been pretty much exploring a little bit, and we found a monster termite mound, and I think you guys need to let us know whose termite mound's bigger. I'm convinced mine's bigger. James's might look bigger because he's smaller, but you let us know which termite mound you think is bigger, and we'll see who wins that at the end of the safari. Also, I brushed my teeth with some leadwood ash, which was quite fun and not nearly as unpleasant as I thought it was going to be. So far, it's been a very entertaining sunset safari. I know James has visited his friend Bob the Bachelor, the hippo in Buffelshoek Dam. And now, as the sun sets, has set, we're hoping that some of the predators will start moving. So we're keeping a sharp eye out, and hopefully we find some more predators. Other than that, we've got lots to look at and lots to talk about if we don't. And to quote Ernest Hemingway, I never had a bad day in Africa. Hi, Catherine from the Lone Star State, Texas. Catherine says, zebra wood is such a beautiful wood. Do we get a lot of it on Kunyuma? We actually do get quite a fair amount of zebra wood, Catherine, but the wood here doesn't really get to the size where it's workable, but you can use it for anything, as the elephants keep it quite pruned and short. So there is quite a bit of it around, but it's generally quite small and scraggly, and you don't get sort of big branches of it. Oh, bouncy bounce. Well, we're just going to stop and listen. I'm going to take this opportunity to answer a question from Pamela, who's referring to tree frogs. Let me just dig into my box of tricks, and voila. And do we have any croaky or coaky small tree frogs in the Sabi Sands? I doubt. The tree frog species we get out in Africa will be, even though they might look quite similar, they'll be quite different. And I love frogs. It's one of my favorite things of the smallest. But some of them are very different and quite specialized. The most common tree frog we get here is called the grey tree frog. Oopsie, where's he gone? Or the foam nest frog. And another one, also quite a common one you get here, is the brown-backed tree frog. So in body shape and size they'll be quite similar. I'm not sure if our tree frogs are as brightly colored as the tree frogs you get in Costa Rica. And one thing you must remember with frogs, there's always a lot of different color variation in frogs. So I mean, that is the same species as the big one on the right, and that's a juvenile who's almost green. But I'm going to try to find you that foam nest frog or grey tree frog, because he is by far the most common tree frog we get here, and make this wonderful little call and you hear it around, and they live in human dwellings a lot. They often park themselves next to lights because nice free insect meals, and all the insects that are attracted to the lights, the grey tree frog or foam nest frog will sit there and munch away. There we go. So, let's see. There we go. Southern foam nest frog or grey tree frog. And they can have great variation in color, all the way to being white. And these are the guys we see the most. They often are around where we live, feeding on the insects, and they've got the strangest little call. And sort of, I'll try to do one next to the microphone for you now. And if you have a look at their feet, I mean, you can see the suckers and that, so they're able to climb. Sorry, VM. So there we go. And if we have a look at the feet closely, you can see the suckers. And on the other page here, we've got a really nice close-up of the feet, and you can see those suction pads that enable them to climb up walls and that. So they're called a foam nest frog. So those of you who've been watching the live drives for a while would have seen those big sort of white balls of foam over water during the wet season. And what happens is they lay their eggs inside that foam. They create that foam, and it goes hard on the outside, and the inside stays moist. And it's a nice safe place for the eggs. And once they hatch, the tadpoles will burrow through and then hopefully drop into a body of water, a pan or a puddle. But unfortunately, there are some very strange ones that sort of do it over a piece of water that's this big and it's dry in 3 days. And unfortunately, those tadpoles don't survive. But I'll try to do the call for you now. It's sort of this very strange sort of burp, burp, very quiet burp, like a little burp coming out. And you can hear them quite often all around you. Never very loud, just burp, burp, all around. But it's a really, really almost endearing sound, especially quite often you get quite attached to the one that sort of lives above the light in your room and eats all the mosquitoes for you. Oh, what a stunning evening. Hey guys, I just had James is on fire today, so we're going to cross back across to Commander Bond and see what he's got. And we'll be back with you a little later.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Jiga. We have been following a leopard track through here, very cleverly heard and identified by the great Brian and his mate Viam. We're now pretty sure that that's exactly what this hyena is looking for. We'll follow him for a little bit. It's very thick in here. Poor old Jandre has had a baptism of fire. He's just there, Jandre. We probably don't have to follow him. He's just over there. Really very thick in here indeed, so follow anything through here will require something of a bulldozer. He's gone off down there, you can see him there. I think he's on the trail of this leopard, and what we're going to do is go round on the road. We're quite far away from the road. Well, I can just see the hyena stop to listen and look. Now they will follow leopard, of course, because if the leopard kills something, they will then steal it. That is their want. Thieving things that they are. I believe that you have decided that Brent is the winner of the Termite Mound quiz. This has left me very sad in my heart, of course. Are you sure it wasn't because Brent's just taller than me? You know, it wasn't the Termite Mound and the presenter included. Anyway, I will endeavour to do better next time. The aerial has disappeared. And I'm very glad that Chris thinks that my photograph was better at least. That's good news. Thank you, Chris. We're gonna follow up on this leopard for a little while and see if we can't find him. Blasting through this bush at this time of the day, guessing where the tracks are is not a brilliant idea. So we'll go back out onto the road. I'd be fascinated to know which leopard this is. We're quite a long way from where Mvula was. It's not completely impossible that if he was really worried about his territory that he could have come this far. But we're getting into Tingana space at this point. Right, well, we've made it out. Not too many scratches on my model-like legs. Hello, Millie in Kentucky. Nice question about Mvula's eye. Do I think his sight will be affected by that eye? Absolutely, I do. Yes. It is my considered opinion that, having looked at it, I'm not sure that he will have much sight from it at all. But that's not necessarily a problem. As someone pointed out the other day, I think his father only had one eye. So a leopard can manage with one eye. Obviously it's easier with two, but I would say that the eye is probably damaged slightly, or I mean I don't know how slightly. I have word from Brent. Go ahead. It's a beautiful evening. You could just see the bit of gold there that's still bathing the horizon. Hello, Jane in Centurion. Thank you very much. My guess at the highest point in the park, being about 800 meters, wasn't too far off. You say there's a mountain on the Bergendal Loop that is roughly 863 meters high, and that's the highest point in the park. Thanks very much for that. And the lowest point is the Sabi River Gorge. Not sure exactly how low. Thank you very much for that, Jane. So, unfortunately, this block is fairly vast. Go ahead, Brent. Brent, I would check with WildEarth access to Sandy Patch. Yeah, sorry, Aubrey's. That is Brent coming back from Mordor in the west, and he's going to try and help us find this leopard. The highest town in Johannesburg is a little place called Belfast. Also one of the ugliest towns in Johannesburg, but not in Johannesburg, in South Africa. Highest town in South Africa, I think, is the town of Belfast, which sits at about 2,000 meters above sea level, which is pretty high. And the highest point in South Africa is a little place called Tabantlenyana. which is down in the borders of the Free State and and KwaZulu-Natal, and that sits at about 3,240 meters, if I'm not incorrect. Jane in Centurion, our altitude info person, if you'd like to check that, that would be marvelous. So we don't really have peaks the height of those in the Andes or the Himalayas, or indeed the height of Kilimanjaro. So you can see this block to my right is where the leopard tracks were going. So I mean, whether we see him or not is really going to be slightly pot luck at this stage. But given the fairly hawk-like peepers of Gendre, the cameraman extraordinaire, I have great hopes. Come on, Gendre, don't let us all down. No pressure. I'm not sure if you can show us that star there, just with a bit of the horizon. There we go. So we're going to stop here and have a listen. And just see if we can't hear and try and hear what's going on. I can't, apparently that leopard was alarm calling. He isn't at the moment. So I don't know if anybody can identify that star. We did do it the other night, and your clue, of course, is that it's not a star at all. Those things there lie on the ecliptic, which is the path that the sun follows, and so it follows east to west, and that's obviously not a star, but what else could it be? I'm just going to sit here for a few seconds and have a listen. Apparently that leopard was not alarm calling, was sawing, so he's giving a territorial call, and if he does it again, it'll give us a much better idea of what's going on. Beautiful golden colors of this late dusk in deepest Africa. Alright, we'll move on slowly. I believe that Brent gave you an age for his termite mound at about 1,000 years. I'm afraid my expertise doesn't extend to aging them, especially given how often they get colonized and recolonized. So I'm afraid I don't really know how old mine was. Definitely going to tell him it was older than his, but I'm not really sure. So I didn't hear anything there, no alarm calls and no territorial calling. Glorious time of night this. And if those beastly lions we were looking for earlier are going to get moving, now will be the time. Much chillier in the dips as opposed to up here on the crests. And that's it's because of something called katabatic flow. Where the hot air tends to come up from the dips and blows up onto the crests because hot air rises, obviously, and the cool air sinks down into the dips, and we get goosebumps when we go through there. We'll take this little track through here, see if he doesn't pop out. Look like tracks of a male. I'm not sure how big though, so perhaps one of those was Quarantine or Kunyuma, who I've yet to see. It'd be really nice to see one of them. I'm entirely sure that this is supposed to be a road. We'll follow it to its conclusion. And while we look, we're going to pass you over to Brent. I'm not sure where he is. I think he's on a road close by helping out. So we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. We're just sitting and just taking in this most magnificent African sky at the moment. It's on fire. We've moved into the same area where James heard that leopard calling, so we're a little bit further north in case he managed to move this way, and we're just standing by and listening and looking at this incredible sky. The temperatures dropped quite a bit. It's about 22 degrees Celsius now, 71 Fahrenheit, and we're on a little bit of a high patch that looks through to the Drakensberg Mountains in the distance. I just heard some lapwings giving an alarm call. I'm going to follow up on those lapwing alarm calls. I think James has got something cute and cuddly for you. So we'll be back, and hopefully those lapwings will lead us to something exciting.
Oh, there's another one there. Another one there. There. Hello, everybody. We found some bush babies just jumping here. I'm just going to sneak back. We had one in full frame, and I'm just going to go back a little to see if we can't see them. We've got 3 or 4 little bush babies. Naturally, they have decided to evade us. Oh, I'm very sorry. Chandra, you can't see them, can you? Oh, that's a pity. Oh, well, we'll carry on through here. Oh, there we go. There's another one. They're all over here. There. See that one there? There, jumping. There, jumping. It's extremely difficult to film these things at night, I must just tell you. So any view you get of them is pretty good. I'll sneak forward. They are literally all over this place. They've obviously got some kind of... Now, maybe there's a lot of acacia bark in the area. There, jumping again. Top. Oh. 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 Not sure how much of that you got. Another one in here. Sorry, let me sneak forward on the road here. There's one there. Middle of the spotlight. Jumping like a gummy bear. See the eyes there? Middle of the spotlight there. There we got him. Well done. That's great. That's the lesser bush baby. I find their ability to jump absolutely astonishing. How they're able to catch onto branches with this level of light that they've got here, I just cannot imagine. It's difficult enough to film them. Ooh. Lost it. He's gone down to the bottom. Up again. We're just going to sneak along the road. All I can see, what you probably won't be seeing where you are, is the flash of his eyes in the light. I mean, that was an unbelievable leap. That leap was about 6 feet off the ground. And given that the bush baby's only about 10 inches tall, that's not bad going. Some kudu looking a little bit alarmed. So you won't be able to see the flash that I'm seeing as the eyes sort of flash towards me, which makes it pretty easy for them to spot, me to spot. And Jandre isn't seeing it either, so the fact that he's managed to follow them is quite astonishing. All right, we're going to leave those bush babies. They clearly do not want to be seen too much by us. Oh. What is that? Leopard. Leopard on the road. Hooray. It's just spotted the kudu. Just spotted the kudu, so I'm not going to shine directly on him. I mean, those kudu are much too large, I imagine, for this leopard, unless there's a youngster there. I'm sorry about the blackened picture, but we just must be quite sensitive. We don't want to light him up for a potential prey. You can hear the kudu off to the right-hand side, perhaps. Not really stalking so much as just having a look. He's looking straight at us. We've just changed the setting on the camera, so we're not actually putting any more light on him. What you were seeing the first time round, that sort of dark picture, is what we've got in reality. That you can make out there is the camera very cleverly enhancing the light. While we sit here and watch him, it's fascinating, you know. As the technology goes, I'm just reading the autobiography of David Attenborough, and when he first went filming in the 50s, they had to take black and white celluloid, and they could only shoot in broad daylight. These days, we hardly take a camera out unless the light is golden and beautiful, and we can go in really low light conditions, which makes for much prettier pictures, I think, than it used to. And I must just thank Andrew and Viam, for they heard the monkey's alarm calling, and they heard this leopard calling, and that's what alerted us to this. And here we are. Sorry, I'm talking nonsense. It wasn't Andrew at all. It was Brian the Thumb and Viam the Aardvark who managed to hear it. Thank you, Brian and Viam. Unfortunately, they didn't get to see him. Sorry, I've lost my mind, everybody. My mind is on this leopard. It is Brian and Andrew. Apparently Andrew is the aardvark. I just look at him and see a bandit, so I don't see an aardvark at all. So Brian and Andrew, sorry for my mishearing what's going on. They helped find it, and unfortunately for them, didn't see it. Viam, of course, is on Brent's vehicle with the other camera. So I don't believe that this leopard is particularly keen on the actual hunt. But I'm still not going to shine on him fully, I'm afraid. We'll just see what he's doing. If he was that keen on it, I think he'd be a lot more sort of active about what he's doing. He's just having a look-see. If something walks into him, well, that'll be a different story. I'm just going to shine through here and see what is in here. Don't worry about the camera, Chandra. What is that? There's a hyena there. You can just see the eyes bobbing up and down there. Don't worry, Chandra, you won't get him with the camera. So there is a hyena through there. It looks to me like the kudu have moved off. Now the leopard's up, he's coming. So I'm going to shine on him because he's not too interested in the prey. I think I've made a mistake here. So viewers, if you know who this is, please let me know. I've never seen this leopard before. This is a female. No, it's not. It is a young male. Sorry. This must be Kunyuma or quarantine. What a special sighting that is. To be so close that we couldn't even film him. So that must be Kunyuma or quarantine. Viewers, I'm not sure if you can tell me how we tell the difference between the two. I have absolutely no idea. So the tracks look like those of a young male, and I'll be fascinated. Apparently, Andrew and Brian said he was calling. Now that is a very young leopard to be calling. Because of him trying to mark territory here, he'll be in big trouble. Yeah. Oh dear, sorry. There he goes. Isn't that lovely? And I've got to tell you, 2 leopards in one drive is not bad going. Raisa, you reckon, thank you for this comment, you reckon that this is Kunyuma? And are you able to tell me how you know that? Just in case I see him again and confuse him with his brother. We're not going to spend too much longer with him. I think he's a little bit awkward. And there's quite a lot going on around here, and I don't want to disturb him too much. We'll keep watching for now. Oh dear, it seems that there is some disagreement on the Twitterverse. I'm glad I'm not part of this. Some saying Kunyuma, some saying quarantine. I have absolutely no way of weighing into this debate, so I'm going to have to take a poll from you guys. Now he's almost doubling back on himself, which is, he's running now, which I'd say is fairly typical of a young male. Not quite marking, he's trying to look and see if he can't see something to eat. Oh, that's a beautiful sight. Right, I'm not going to follow him on from here, everybody. I think he's looking like he's quite hungry, and he just keeps running a little bit every time we get a bit close. And I think with a big bright light like this, we're going to disturb his hunting. And if he was a big territorial male, we might carry on. But I think with him, we won't. So if he moves off from here, I'm afraid that's... He doesn't look to be going anywhere just now, though. All right, so we've only got a minute left, and I think that that's perfect for what we've seen here. I'm going to have a last look at him, and then we're going to take the light off him. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm sorry to take away his beautiful view. But I really think it is more sensitive to leave him be at this time of the night. It's got very dark. There are hyena around, so we don't want to sort of make him obvious to any possible threats. Thank you very much to everybody who sent through your identifying markers. I will have a look through those when I get home. I didn't get any identifying markers, so I'm afraid you're going to have to fight amongst yourselves to decide who he was. Thank you very much to Jandre for his first day on camera. Thanks to Tara and Viam, who are in the control room, to Brian and Andrew, who were looking for leopards, and to, sorry, Viam's not in the control room at all, I've lost my mind, Brent and Viam on the other vehicle. And thank you to all of you for your comments, your questions, and all your help. We're just going to turn the light off and let you have a sense of this glorious African night. We'll see you in the morning.